Welcome back guys, this is Gamer for Life, back with another tutorial of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. And what is best than flying in New Zealand today, because Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 has just received its recent update, which is update 12, which is New Zealand. So we'll be flying from Auckland to Christchurch International Airports in today's tutorial, and it will be a step-by-step process. So we'll be doing a cold and dark start. We'll be taxiing to our runway and taking off, reaching the cruise altitude, descending, and then doing an ILS auto landing. Yes, so we'll be doing an auto landing today. So this is a complete tutorial for a complete flight. So let's hop in. So let's click on the world map and let's select our departure and arrival airports first. For our departure airport, the Auckland International Airport, the code is NZAA, so let's choose that. And for our arrival airport, the Christchurch International Airport, the code is NZCH. Alright, so this seems to be an about hour-long flight because we are using the FlyByWire's A320neo. So if you want to choose your plane, click on this icon and then click on aircraft selection, and from this drop-down menu you can choose airliners. So there are 6 planes on my current installation of MSFS 2020. 5 of these are default. The one which is a mod is A320neo by FlyByWire. It's a free mod, you can download it. So just click on it to select it and then go back. And now the next thing we need to do is choose low altitude airways. And first thing, since we want to do a cold and dark start, so let's go to our departure airport, and currently we are set up to take off from the runway. That means all the engines and all the system of the plane will be running, which we do not want. So we want to do a cold and dark start. So let's start from a gate. So gate 23, that is departure. All right, now let's choose a SID, so standard instrument depart. So these are specific waypoints. So right now our plane is just taking off and taking a weird left turn. So let's choose standard instrument departure, SID, and from the prior experimentation I know that Lang 2A is the most appropriate one for today's flight. So similarly, let's now set up first for our ILS landing. So our current runway is 20, so we should have an option in the approach for ILS 20, and there it is. And now we need to, similar to SID, we need to choose a star, which is standard arrival. And again, from prior experimentation I know that the most appropriate option here is peak 8B. So these are the specific waypoints. So with that taken care of, what we need to do is first choose the time of the day, and we want early morning hours. So about 8:30 would be a very good time to fly, and we can choose the weather whichever we want. So I want to use today the clear skies. So with that taken care of, let's now go to the nav log, and this nav log shows us our cruise altitude, which is 37,000 feet, and all the waypoints that we'll be flying through. And for each waypoint it shows us the heading, the distance between the waypoints, the altitude at which we should be flying during our flight. So it's important to note a few waypoints that at the Tonus we will be reaching our cruise altitude, and just after Talem we'll be starting our descent, and at about Blunt we should be at 4,000 feet to be able to capture the glide slope, which will then enable us to perform an ILS auto landing. So with that out of the way, let's now click on fly. So here we are at Auckland International Airport, and I have three panels on my secondary monitor. So one is the ATC communication, which I leave on my secondary monitor. I have flight assistance, so if I want to turn on the taxi ribbon and other options, if I want to switch the AI radio communication to AI or manual, so I keep it at manual when I'm starting off, and the VFR map. So let's now take a look outside and see there are a few planes preparing or have just arrived. We are definitely in preparation to fly. So let's go inside and let's go to our top panel and turn on the batteries as well as the external power. And let's set the ADIR switches to nav, because this helps plane know where it's standing in the world, and it takes about 5 to 7 minutes to align. Alright, so with that taken care of, let's go to our PFD to set up the brightness of all the displays. So I'm gonna set these to maximum. Alright, so let's set up the eCam displays, upper and lower both. Alright, so with that taken care of, what we need to now do is turn on the tab, because we need some information from tab to be entered into our flight management computer to do calculations for V1, VR, which is rotation speed, and V2. So but before that, we'll be starting our APUs, which takes a bit of time. So let's turn on the master switch and let's turn on the APU starter. Let's also turn on crew oxygen supply, and while the APU is starting, let's focus on our flight management computer. So what we need to do is we need to enter these V1, VR and V2 speeds, and for that we need information related to fuel, like zero fuel weight and other information. So that we have to enter here. So zero fuel weight CG, and how much the block fuel would be on the plane, and this information is available from our tab. So if we click on the ground tab, there are 4 different tabs. So first let's go to fuel, and currently our plane has 9,525 kg of fuel. So let's click on this button and this will execute. So the plane has, so it shows completed refueling. So currently the plane has this. So now amount of fuel will help us determine the payloads. So the payload currently is not taking into account the number of passengers. So we want 100 passengers. So this will then calculate the passenger weight, the cargo weight, and now the zero fuel weight stands at 52,000 kilograms, and zero fuel weight CG is 33.06. So let's execute this by begin boarding, and we have quite a few seats empty today, so it's gonna be a good flight for everybody. All right, so 52 and 33. So let's go back to our flight management computer and let's enter this information. So 52/33, and let's enter it. And now this will help us calculate the block fuel. So let's click on planning and then again. So this will determine takeoff weight and landing weight as well on its own without us doing anything. All right, so the captain briefing has started already. So now with that taken care of, we can now go to performance page, and we'll be using flaps 1 for taking off. And another thing is we need to take into account the cost index. So if you don't know, just enter 40, it will work well. For flight number, you can enter any. I'm just entering random number. I just don't really care what the number is. And for the cruise altitude, it should be 370 because it's 37,000 feet. So let's enter that, and this will also give us temperature, which is -52. All right, so now we can go to performance tab with all that information available. Let's click on V1 and click again. So this will be our V1 speed, which will be our VR speed. So it's now because all the calculations are in place, it's calculating all these speeds on its own. So I think we are pretty much done with the flight management computer, and we can now go to our top panel and see APU is also available now. So let's now start prepare for pushback before we can start our engine. So let's turn on the strobe lights, the beacon lights. And let's turn on the runway light. And let's set this landing light to taxiing. Okay, so this will tell the ground staff that we are getting prepared for taxiing. Alright, so let's go to tab. We'll be using this again. On the ground tab we have the pushback tab, so it's a sequential process. So let's click on pushback system on, confirm it, call in the pushback tug, and let's go outside and see if the pushback tug is getting into position for sure. While this is getting into position, let's now work on our taxi clearance. So one thing is, if your pushback tug is being engaged, you won't be getting the option to taxi. All right, so let me go inside and let me just call off the pushback tug and turn off the pushback system. So we already have a clearance because the AI radio communication was already on, so AI was handling it, so it asked for clearance. So it has provided us 8,000 feet initial departure altitude, climb altitude after departure, and then we have to so it told us to contact 123 when ready to taxi. So let's go to 123, and this will now provide us option to request taxi clearance. So let's click on that. I have the ATC volume really turned down. So currently what you're hearing is the briefing by the flight crew to the passengers. So we have to contact 120.95 when ready to take off. So I have to acknowledge the taxi clearance, and now with taxi clearance, so we'll have to switch off to 120.95 when ready to taxi. So let's click on this, and after this we can turn our communication, radio communication, to AI. Now we won't have to handle any. As we reach the mark of entering our departure runway, we'll be the ATC AI will be handling the permission for takeoff. All right, so I'm now again attaching the pushback tug. The APU is up and running. You can hear it. The APU is located in this part of the plane. Alright, so tug is in position. Let's go inside and we can release the parking brake. Another great thing with the latest development version of FlyByWire A320neo, which I downloaded yesterday, is that it enables you to use your controller, the joystick, to steer the plane while it's being pushed back. So we do not need to use this button. All we need to do is to start the pushback. Alright, so we are being pushed back. So let's now go inside and let's start our engine. So let's turn on the APU bleed, fuel pumps, and with that taken care of, let's set the engine mode selector to start, and let's turn on this master switch for our engine to start the engines. Alright, so while the engines are starting, let's use our joystick to align. With the yellow line. All right, so let's go inside. Just calibrating my thrust levers. I think we are pretty much lined up, so we can stop the pushback, we can engage parking brake, we can call off the pushback tug and turn off the pushback system. Alright, so let me check. So our engine 2 has started. Let's turn on the engine 1 as well. And while the engine 1 is starting, another important thing is we need to check for discontinuities in our flight plan. So you see right away we have one discontinuity. To remove this, click on clear button and it should say CLR at the bottom, and click on the discontinuity to clear it out. This will create a lot of problems if you have a flight discontinuity. Plane will have trouble following the flight plan, which is filed already. So let's check down till the bottom, and there is another discontinuity. Let's clear that out as well. That's it. So we are all clear now. So waiting for engine 1 to start. So both our engines are up and running. So let's now go to the top panel and we need to turn off the APU. And let's set the engine selector mode back to the normal. So our engines are up and running and we are ready to taxi. Alright, so for taxiing, just release the parking brake and give initial thrust so that plane starts moving, and now then set the thrust levers back to idle. So as stated by the fly-by-wire team, so this is what happens in the real life flight. When thrust levers are set to 0, plane is automatically moving for taxiing. So since I'm not a pilot, I'm just a flight simmer, so I trust them what they say. The tab is also giving us a preview of where we are going. So we'll be moving straight and then making another turn and then again making a left turn and then entering our takeoff runway. Let's just slow down on the turns by applying gentle brakes. Alright, one final right turn to enter our takeoff runway. Let's slow down a little, and we have our AI handling the ATC communication. And as soon as we touch that yellow line, AI will help us get that clearance. Let's slow down. Let's slow down. Yes, so we are asking and we have got the takeoff clearance. So let's line up with the runway and then apply parking brake. So make some final preparations before we take off. Let's engage parking brake. Alright, so we need to check the ATC, and when taking clearance for filed flight plan, we were told to get initial climb altitude of 8,000 feet. So let's enter 8,000 feet. Let's set auto brakes to medium in case of a rejected takeoff. Let's set flaps to 1. You can see the position of the flaps changing here. And let's engage the brakes. And now finally let's set our landing lights to take off. And I think with that we are ready for taking off. So let's release parking brake. Let's add thrust. Let's gently push forward on the stick until the plane starts moving. This will be a toga takeoff, so let's add full thrust. It's a V1 and rotate. So it's positive rate, gear up. Let's set the thrust levers to climb, because auto thrust is engaged on its own. So once you set the thrust levers to climb, the speed will be managed on its own. Let's set the flaps to 0. We are climbing pretty decently without any issues. So now let's engage autopilot, and now plane will follow the flight plan that we have given to it already. So what we need to do is set ATC to auto, so that squawk settings are done automatically, because it will keep telling us to verify the squawk. So this is the same method here. So when it's auto, it will be taking care of it, and we don't have to do it manually like in the real flight. So shortly we'll be making a gentle left turn to our next waypoint, which will be Kapai. So we are being told to climb an altitude of 20,000 feet, 220. Let's go outside and see how we are doing. So the sound effects change depending on what angle we are using to listen to the plane. It gives you altogether different effect. So we are above 10,000 feet. That means we can turn off our landing lights. So it has instructed us to climb to 30,000 feet. So that's our next aim. So let's plug in 30,000 feet and our plane will start climbing again. So our final instruction to change our altitude is to reach an altitude of 37,000 feet, which is in fact the climb, which is in fact the cruise altitude. Alright, now ATC is telling us to descend to 26,000 feet. So let's do that. I noticed after recent update, ATC is doing quite a good job of giving accurate instructions in terms of changing the altitude. Initially it used to be quite strange, you are just about 10 nautical miles from your runway and then ATC is telling you to come to an altitude of 3,000 feet. So I was continuously managing the altitude on my own, but now this time around, after the update number 12, I see that as a very positive and very good change, rather an improvement. I think these announcements are pretty engaging from the captain and from the flight crew. So as soon as we started our descent, the captain is briefing the passengers about the start of descent. So you can see at our next waypoint peaks, we have to be at 11,000 feet. So rather than stopping at 26,000 feet, I'll just file in 11,000 feet so that the plane continues to descend. So ATC has already told us to descend down to 18,000 feet, but we will continue to descend to 11,000. So the next instruction is to descend down to 8,000 feet. So here we are. We are close to making our final turn towards the runway, and I'm anticipating that this is the waypoint where we will have to capture our glide slope. So by this waypoint, the Odyssey, we have to be at an altitude of about 3,500 feet. I'm pretty happy with the ATC doing a very good job of instructing you to descend down as opposed to earlier. So what I'll do, I think I'll just enter the final altitude of 4,000 feet, because by the time we reach our next waypoint, ATC will be advising us to get down again to a lower altitude. So currently I think it's accepting 6,000 feet. So now we are being told to maintain an altitude of 2,000 feet. So what I'll do, I'll just turn on the landing system to see the position of glide slope and localizer, and I hope ATC was right in instructing us to change our altitude and we are not late for capturing the glide slope. What I'll do, I can just speed up the descent. So we are being told to reduce our speed. So what I'll do, I'll just see if I can activate the approach phase. So let's activate the approach phase so that we slow down. So currently, because we are descending down very fast, so our speed is increasing. So once we level out, I think we'll be able to reduce our speeds. So I know these are not the ideal speeds at which we must be flying. It's approaching above 300 knots, but there was some miscalculation on my part. I was flying on ATC, so we have missed that mark. So we are seeing the localizer, but we have yet to see the glide slope, and I hope we do not miss the glide slope. We have made our final turn and we are now lining up with our runway. Okay, so I managed to bring the altitude down to 3,000. Let's set the thrust levers to climb, and auto thrust is already engaged, and we are lined up with the runway, so let's turn on the localizer, and I see the glide slope is also there. Let's turn on the approach mode as well, and let's lower the flaps. So we are overspeeding currently, which is going to reduce very soon, and I think we are lined up with the runway and we have started descending towards the runway. So our thrust levers are set. Let me turn off the alarm. Thrust levers are set, so we should be losing the speed.
2,500.
It is declining, so let's add more flaps. Let me reduce the speed manually. I think because of the faster descent, I think things aren't working as they must. So I'm just going to set the speed to 140 knots. And as we continue to descend, I'm gonna lower the flaps another notch. Let's wait for the alarm to go off. I'm gonna lower the landing gear. We are gonna set the brakes to medium, and we are gonna engage speed brakes. And let's now also engage autopilot 2. So this will ensure auto landing. So let's add final flaps. Full flaps are added now, and we can reduce the speed to 130 knots.
1,000. $500. $400. $300. $200.
So it's
100.
saying land, it will soon turn to flare, ensuring that we are doing an auto
50,
landing.
40,
Yes,
30,
it's flaring.
20.
So no need
10.
to intervene.
Retard.
Just
Retard.
have to wait, and we can now retard.
Retard.
Set the thrust levers to 0, and we can engage reverse thrust to further slow down the plane. Let's set it back to 0 and apply brakes. And we can disengage autopilot. So this was a quick tutorial, I believe. I hope this was helpful in terms of learning how to fly FlyByWire A320neo. And let me know what you think of the video. Let me know if you have any comments below. Give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.